All right, just a brief overview of what I'm using. So I will be installing a Kenwood Exelon DMX 809S. Any double DIN should work or fit fine, but this is just the one I chose. And with the premium sound system in the Crowns, you'll need to use the MVX43B adapter wiring harness from BeatSonic. I will also be installing a front camera and backup camera. One thing to mention, don't make the mistake I did. I had already started getting a lot of stuff apart and realized I never took the CDs out of the CD disc. So before you start ripping stuff apart, maybe you should do that first if you want to keep CDs. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so what I want to do now is kind of lay out how the wiring is going to work with the BeatSonic unit and the new unit that you'll be installing. So there was an instruction manual that came with it with an English wiring diagram, and then the instructions fully in Japanese that you can use Google Translate to if you need to. This is the wiring harness from BeatSonic, and then this is all of the stuff that came with the unit that I have, the Kenwood unit. So pretty straightforward. As with most units, there's a GPS that comes with it for you to utilize the GPS system if it has it. This plugs into here from the unit, and that has a lot of the wires that you'll be connecting to the BeatSonic unit that I'll show in a minute. There's a front camera input on this specific unit, parking, reverse, mic, and there's the mic that you plug in there. This is the USB that goes if you want to plug in your phone, or USB to CarPlay. So I'll be doing a little custom flush mount install of that into the glove box. So if I want to use wired CarPlay or Android Auto, you can plug it directly in there, kind of next to where the 12-volt plug is already in the glove box. So that's the top level view. So now we'll start actually showcasing what wires go where. So I went ahead and hooked up the wires as they're shown here. Pretty self-explanatory, everything's color-coded. The wires that you won't use on the BeatSonic are these two, which are for TV, and it says only for Japanese market. And then this ground, I will connect to the ground that comes from the harness from the Kenwood unit. And then all of the light colors from the Kenwood unit, where the harness plugs into the plug here, are connected to the BeatSonic. So yellow to yellow, red to red, the power wires. The blue antenna wire, it says is only needed for estate models, which I have, so I connected that. The illumination wire is the orange wire, and then these are the speaker wires. The front channels, the gray and the white ones, are the front channels, and that's all you need to attach here at the front. The rears do not require. It will work. The rears will still be able to be adjusted, just not required to be attached here. The wires I did not use from the Kenwood unit is the mute wire, and again the rear wires and the steering wheel control wires. So all of this should be good to go. These two plugs will plug directly into the factory harness that comes from the car. This will plug in the Kenwood unit, and everything will be good to go. The only things I'll have to connect additionally is for the reverse camera, tap into the reverse light so it'll know to trigger the camera on. And for safety, they want you to wire up to the parking brake so you don't watch TV while the car is in motion. And then of course here is your rear camera input. I already showed the front camera input, the mic, the USB to utilize the CarPlay and Android Auto, and the navigation. So once we hook all those up, splice into those wires that were mentioned, find ways to route the wires nicely, route the wires for the navigation, for the mic. That should be it, and it should be ready to go. So the next step will be to start buttoning it up in the car and routing the wires and finding ways to make sure everything looks clean on the install, and then testing. Okay, so a little bit on how to hook up the cameras. So for the reverse camera, you're going to hook up the RCA into where the reverse camera is supposed to go in. Attached to the RCA, there's a trigger wire, and that's the wire you're going to hook up to the purple reverse wire from the aftermarket head unit. On the back side of the camera wiring, there's also two other wires. The black wire will go to ground, and the red wire will go to a signal wire that signals when you're into reverse. The recommendation is to put it on the reverse lights, so these wires are pretty long, so when you run the backup camera all the way to the back, you just go ahead and run these wires. You can also hook up the red wire to a trigger. I know there's one on the dash. I don't remember exactly where it is, but one of the plugs in the dash has a trigger wire if you don't want to run these wires all the way to the back. But that's the way you would hook these up for a backup camera, so that way when you switch into reverse, it'll automatically turn on the camera. Now for the front camera, you don't need the wire to be triggered on when it's reverse. So for the front camera, which on this unit is right here, you would basically plug the RCA for the front camera here, but you would not need to plug this red wire into the reverse trigger wire. You would hook this red wire up to the accessory wire, the accessory power wire, the red wire that was earlier hooked between the BeatSonic adapter and the factory unit right there. As for the two wires in the back, the red wire back here now is not needed. You can just plug that one off, and then the black wire you would plug to ground. That way the front camera always has a signal from the wire once the accessories are turned on, but you would use the head unit to trigger when to access the front camera. So most of these head units that have front camera inputs has a way to turn on the front camera manually whenever you want to. So that's kind of the logic behind how I'll be hooking up the front versus the rear camera. Okay, so I've already gotten a large portion of this out, so I'm going to backtrack a little. When installing the new stereo, the first thing you need to do is take the center console center channel parts out. First and foremost, always disconnect the battery, and then I put the this in neutral, hitting the shift lock, and allowed it to get out easier. And the first thing you would do is, when you have it in your car, as shown here, you would take a little bone tool or a little pry tool and gently pry here and here, and it actually pops up pretty easily. It's only held in by these clips right here and two clips in the front, and you can pull this out pretty easily. So when you first pull this out, you'll have some tension because there'll be some plugs you need to unplug. These two up here, one there and one there, and then this whole unit can come off. Don't have to worry about the shifter, it comes off just fine. The next step is, once you get that off and all the clips disconnected, is you have to take the center channel out. And what you would do there, again, pretty simple. Inside the center console box, there was a cover here that you can pry out. There's a little screwdriver can fit right there, and you pop it out. And there's two 10mm screws there, two 10mm screws there, and in the front you'll have two 8mm screws. And once you do that, it's pretty simple. It comes out. Now you will possibly have some tension back here in the rear ashtray area. I've already taken it out, the piece in here, but there's a little plastic piece you can kind of pull out, and you'll see there's a wire that's connected there as well, and you can unplug that. Then this whole centerpiece should come out. Okay, so once you have the center console out, the next thing you want to do is actually remove the CD changer unit. The first thing you want to do is to remove this cover, and it has 4 clips, 2 at the top, 2 in the bottom. And like with the first piece you remove the centerpiece, if you just gently take a pry tool on the side of it, you should be able to pop them out, and it comes out pretty easily. And that'll leave you with this unit in this cubby here. Attached to the CD changer unit, there's also this right here on the bottom of it. There's 4 screws holding this in, 2 that are down here and 2 that are up here. Again, this is attached to this via the brackets on the side that you can see. Those 2 holes at the bottom that have nothing in there, they actually attach to the side of this. One of the things I realized when I was trying to pull this out, the wires don't stretch very far, so it was kind of hard to get to these plugs and disconnect it, especially these plugs on the unit down here. They were really quite difficult. So I decided to remove those bolts that went in there, the ones down here, removed them while it was still stuck in this area and separated the two, because the wires that are in the back of this one were pretty easy to get off. So that allowed me to separate the unit, because when you install your new unit, you're gonna have to put this back on it anyway with the brackets. So I've decided to leave this here because this is really the only unit we'll be taking out and replacing. This can all stay in here and get attached to the new unit as it goes along. So, okay, so I've got all the wiring set up how I wanted to. So the first thing I'm going to do is test it right before routing everything, buttoning everything up, screwing everything back in. I just wanted to make sure everything seems to function, at least the things that I'm going to be testing. CarPlay. I do have the front camera hooked up with the grounds and everything, so hopefully I can test that. Not the rear camera yet because I haven't hooked it up to the rear light. But you know, just a general function sound test, make sure everything still works. So the ground I ended up hooking up to was this bolt here. I'm not sure this is going to be my final location. That was just the quickest and easiest to get to just for the test. So yeah, I'm going to get ready to reconnect the battery and see what happens. Well, good news, everything seems to work that I wanted to test out. So here it is functioning with CarPlay. It booted up no problem. Sound quality is pretty good. I did follow the instructions. I know there was some videos or posts I'd seen online or on Facebook that the sound quality being that there's a volume control on the aftermarket unit and a volume control on the factory unit, that sometimes they don't play well with each other. There's distortion or there's some issues. So BeatSonic did have a recommendation that when you start this, you have both volumes all the way down. Then you take the volume on the aftermarket unit to about halfway, and then you start using this as your volume. And I did that. It seems to sound good. No issues with the sound, no static, no distortion. So that's good. I also tested out the front camera just to make sure. That's the only one I've hooked up completely, and it works. Don't mind what it's looking at, it's just on the floor. But everything so far on the first test functions. I still got the rear camera to do and some other little things, and then I'll start cleaning up all the wiring, finding nice places to mount everything, run the wires that I need to run, etc. But yeah, so far everything seems to be on the up and up. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start the install after testing. I utilized the brackets that came with the original CD unit. The original CD unit had used 4 of the holes because the unit was a lot deeper. This one only uses 2. The important thing to remember to line it up is it can fit in 2 holes. One is here and one is a little further back. You want to go the one a little further back. It'll leave a little bit of gap between here. At least it did on my unit. Other units might look a little different. And then the bottom ones hook up to this box that we had seen in the beginning, the original box. As for the BeatSonic unit, I don't know if you can see it back there. It almost fits perfectly as you push it down underneath this section right here. It's pretty snug. My goal was to make sure everything in here was somehow secure so things wouldn't be rattling, shaking around. I might do a little more to make sure it fixes in there good, but that looks like a good spot for right now. I'll double check it once I actually install it, make sure it seems good. A lot of the wires that I needed, like the grounds, I ran up through here and around, so they'd come out here. So like the rear camera, the input for the CarPlay, they're all run underneath here and down there. Some of the other wires that I'm going to need to maybe go to the top or the front, I'll run back along here, and same with back along there. At least that's the target. So right now I still got a few more wires to run around and snake around. But yeah, that should be pretty good to get everything in there securely. Everything is now installed. All the wires that need to be pulled through are pulled through. You can see there's still a mess down here for the front camera, the navigation, the microphone, the backup cameras back here. Still a lot to do, but as far as securing all of the stuff behind here, making sure all the correct wires are run through, making sure the grounds are put back on, that's all done. So the next step would be the surround. So BeatSonic provides a surround like this that a lot of people use, which looks nice because it fits tightly with a standard double DIN unit. I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to put this back in. So assuming I installed everything correctly and the bracket's in the right spot, this should fit in with no issues, and the cover should still be able to go on. Now there will be a gap around this, and I will show you what was done to remedy that. Voila. Now you see there's a gap around here, right? So there is a way to fix that. There is a trim piece that I 3D printed. Now, it wasn't my trim piece. Actually, there was someone else on one of the Crown Facebook groups that had this install and had the sides covered. So I asked that individual what they did, and they shared a file that I 3D printed, and I will go put that on next. There was a little bit of a snag on the original configuration. So turns out if you want to use the trim from the BeatSonic unit, then the bolt holes on the side that I showed you were correct. But in order to use the factory cover, and specifically with this 3D printed piece, you actually have to put it in the bolt holes on the new unit that were closer up, and that will push the unit back a little bit and recess it back a little bit, because this trim piece only fits if the unit is recessed a little bit. And I actually like the way it looks recessed. Some people might not. There's not much room otherwise, so if you have it facing forward more in the original configuration, there really isn't anywhere, or it's difficult to find a way to make a surround that fills the gaps that will fill it the right way. So with this trim piece, having it recessed a little bit makes it fit flush. Very happy with it. You can close the cover still. That's something personally I wanted to do, is I wanted to keep the cover. Some people don't care. They'd rather use the unit from BeatSonic. That's your choice, but I'm happy. I like the way it looks. One thing I did not do is I did not really take many good videos of routing the backup camera, unfortunately. So I'll do my best to walk through it after the fact. As you saw in the earlier videos, that I had pulled the wiring out the side. So I ran the wiring back underneath here and down through this section. It's not that difficult actually to tuck it underneath this part right here and run it back on the car. And then same back here. As you run it, continue down there, and it can run up under through here and in through the back. So when you get the wiring back here, it's pretty easy path to route the wires behind this panel right here. I'm not going to go into the detail in this video of how to take all of these panels off. It's not that difficult, it's just time consuming. There's lots of clips, lots of little screws that you need to be cautious with, be extra careful not to break those. So just take your time with it. The ground wire, I'm pretty sure I found a spot back here. I can't remember exactly where for the ground wire. Then what you will do is you will route the wire up here, and you will actually be able to pull it through here. It is difficult. I would use some Vaseline or lube on the wires, pull these out through there, and able to snake it through here. It'll come up here, and all the wiring will go behind the panel there. These panels are pretty easy to take off. Just a few clips there. And then the signal or trigger wire that we talked about, you'll actually wire into the reverse wires up there. So here is the backup camera. You can kind of see the location it's at. This is probably the most difficult part of the install, if I'm being honest, because behind this plastic, it's pretty thick metal, so it's not that easy to drill into. But the bigger part is, unfortunately, I don't have pictures of it on the inside of the trunk panel. It's hard to really tell where you're going to break through when you drill through here. And there's really only one or two spots that is accessible enough and flat enough that if you drill a large enough hole in here to mount the camera, the nut or screw on the other side of the camera that has to go in, that you can actually access it, because there's lots of areas where you can't access it. So this was kind of difficult to figure out. So what I did was I took all of these panels off, all of the plastic pieces off here, and kind of see what it looked like behind there. Drilled a tiny hole to try to see where it came out at, and kind of configured once that was there, was it close enough. So there is a small hole in the metal behind here that's kind of in the wrong spot, till I could find out where I needed to drill to make it match perfectly. Maybe not the best method, but it worked for me once I found out where it was at and where I could drill next to get it through to the point on the other side where everything would be accessible and able to tighten. That's what I had to do. If anyone is interested in doing a front camera, I have not done it yet, but I can show you what the plan is. So I'm going to carefully Dremel this section out right here. The camera I got will fit near perfectly in there, and I think it'll look very nice and very hidden, very factory OEM, very sleek. On the back side, you can kind of see here how it'll look once it pokes through there. I will create a bracket that I will affix here to allow it to secure itself nicely, and then I will run the wires some way, maybe aligned with this, and down here somewhere. The target is to have it pull back down around here, around that section where the sprayers are, and go behind through the firewall somewhere back there. Haven't really configured where it's going to go there, but the target here is to have it look factory. So I think that's a good spot. And that's about it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Have any questions or comments, please add them. And thanks. Have a good day.